Meanwhile, Governor Hyacinth Alia has directed a full-scale joint security operation into Apa and Gwer West local government areas in a bid to stop the escalating violence that has claimed more than 20 lives. Speaking to journalists after an emergency security council meeting at the government house on Monday, the governor confirmed that 12 people were killed in Apa and another 11 in Gwer West. Alia condemned the attacks in strong words, describing them as unacceptable and deeply troubling. He assured residents that security forces have been mobilized and are already on the ground to secure the affected communities. He also noted that casualty figures may change as operations continue, with teams directed to sweep through the area, assess the damage, and work to restore peace and order. Joining us now is Ier Jonathan-Ichaver. She joins me live in the studio. She is the co-convener of the influential Middle Belt concern, comprising some 77 groups in the North Central. Ier, many thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I must say, this is a very saddening news about the deaths and the numbers of killings that we're seeing in Benue, and it seems to be continuing in spite of all that's happening. Is there going to be a lasting solution now that we've seen the deployment, more additional deployments of troops to this flashpoints, but most importantly, the relocation of the army chief?
I'm very sorry to say, as I was watching and reading that news earlier today, it all sounds so familiar. We've heard all of this before. These attacks began 2009 and they've been ramping up. 2014, for example, they actually were at high pitch. 2015, 2016, and same thing. Army said they were going there. The then Chief of Army Staff, it was actually the Inspector General of Police, went there, lodged in Benue hotels, and they would foray out in the morning, come back. They were not in the key epicenters. Makurdi is not the epicenter of the violence. They just mentioned, the governor mentioned Apa and Gwer West local governments. You've got Agatu, you've got Kwande. In fact, Benue has about 23 local governments. Of those 23 local governments, only 3 are relatively safe. All the others are occupied either by terrorists, bandits, military groups, and all sorts. This has been going on for a very long time. There's been a failure of intelligence, and I think one of the key things beyond the show, I think the general feeling amongst the groups in the Middle Belt and the local population is one of trepidation, because we've had all this show before where they will come, the military are coming. And sometimes when the military comes in, yes, they may arrest a few, but if they're not using intelligence to get the people who are truly behind this. Because beyond just displacing and killing the people, we know there's illegal mining activities going on in places like Gwer, in places like Kwande, where we know there's gold. We also know that there are other minerals. There's lead, there's graphite. We're very aware of this. And sometimes those things are moved out. And even though the governor had made some moves to stop that, this is extremely all interconnected. And we want to know who is behind this. Who are these killers? Who is funding them? They come with serious heavy-grade weapons.
All right.
And so it's not just about the soldiers just getting there and doing this. We need the intelligence. We need the people who are behind this arrested, tried, prosecuted, and imprisoned.
So, I mean, it now begs to ask the question that the reason why, what then could be the reason why there's no long-lasting solution to the problem? Because you're saying that all of those measures that we've seen has happened before in the past, and nothing has changed.
Absolutely.
They haven't been deployed to the epicenters, and mining is also at the core of the issue here. Why is there no long-lasting solution? Is it a case of political will, or lack of intelligence, or a triad that we're not seeing?
I think there's, to an extent, a lack of political will. These killings have been going on for a long time. I'm actually surprised that the governor is only mentioning Apa and Gwer West. We have killings in Kwande. We have killings in Guma. We have killings in Agatu. Ask the governor himself whether when those attacks happen, if he even goes there. And this is our governor. This is the person the people voted overwhelmingly for. I know Governor Alia was not rigged into office, because the people were solidly, at least a majority of the people, were solidly behind him. Yet, the attacks happen, he hardly goes there. This is somebody whose heart is supposed to be close to the people. and then behaves as if a few weeks ago, I don't know if you heard the story, his own security aide, his special aide on security, came and said Benue was peaceful. There's a clip making the rounds on Facebook where he himself went to the presidency and said Benue was peaceful. So how come we've had this thing is ratcheting up so much that nothing has happened? So one, I think there's a lack of political will, not only on the part of the state government, of course the local government also begs the question which the Middle Belt Concern has been asking, what have you been doing with the security vote? We want to see what has been happening. One. Two, even at federal level, we have all sorts of military formations there. Today, as we were discussing in our various community groups about this deployment of the Chief of Army Staff coming, one of the community members said, even when they report intelligence, make intelligence reports, when they hear reports that these terrorists are coming in, they raise the alarm. The soldiers sometimes will wait, because there are already some soldiers in some areas. They will wait until they've done the killings before they will come and they'll pick up the bodies and start crying with the community. Who does that? So there is that, so just to close out on your question, there is that failure of acting on intelligence, because the intelligence is there. I mean, we have drone technology, for goodness sake. Nigeria is not in the dark ages. Why are we not employing this to even prevent the attacks? Why is it that it's the army, and where's the DSS in all of this? Where's the National Security Advisor in all of this? He came a few weeks ago, made some placatory statements, and left. So what is the NSA doing? What in fact is the entire security architecture at state level, at federal level doing? So we believe there's a lack of political will, there's a failure to act, even when there's credible intelligence. And the third reason why this is not being stopped, even after over 10, almost 15 years of these continuing attacks, we honestly have no clue.
And so it begs to ask the question about, you know, the repeated scale of violence that we're seeing in Benue State and just the frequency of it. Although the government, the presidency, and somewhat from the Army's chief move, it's clear there's a severity, there's a bit of attention to it. But should it be declared an act of violence, or rather act of terrorism?
These are terrorist attacks.
Yeah, but you're not giving that. So you're saying that terrorist attack. There's no term. Maybe if there was a bit of term of act of terrorism.
I'm so glad you're asking this, because I want to even appeal to media. You know, this whole idea about bandits, unknown gunmen, came into prominence during General Buhari's time in power, this second time he came. From 2015, when he came in, for some reason, we started hearing the security forces calling these people bandits, unknown gunmen. And these guys are terrorists, we know. In fact, in I think it was 2014 or 2015, there was a report released, the International Security Index, if I remember correctly, which actually said that the Fulani militia armed groups were considered the third most deadly terrorist group operating in Africa. That report, somehow it came out, after a while it died down, and then there was this whole, it started calling these attacks bandits. They would say, oh, bandits attacked here, bandits attacked there.
It was generalizing to say it was Fulani, it was generalizing.
No, this was just a particular report, right? So, of course, the questions have arisen, oh, should it be? But the people who have been attacked, at least in Benue, I can tell you for a fact, there are local militia in some cases where it happened, but largely, overwhelmingly, I've been working on this. I've been in some of those fields. I've actually been in a situation where these Fulani militia kidnapped a young man, made him call his wife on the phone, and were torturing him and speaking in Fulfulde and saying things. They were now translating in Hausa to the wife, because some of those people could speak Hausa. Now, we're not saying that all Fulanis are terrorists. That's
right, because that's
not by any stretch. That's not what we're saying. It's just like when they say in the Eastern European conflict, for example, they say Chechen rebels. That's not what we're saying. But it has been clearly identified, even by the terror victims, in many of the cases, that the people who came, they were Fulani militia. Note, they just identified some of the militia. You now have some groups in some places. So, for example, sometimes in places like Zakibiam, where in the past you've had local militia gangs also now attacking the people. And sometimes there's also no political will to deal with some of those local militia gangs, because in the past they've also been used by politicians to help them get into power.
Should this problem be risen to high levels of severity to now be labeled as an act of terrorism?
Absolutely. My belief is that the Benue, the Middle Belt, even parts of, we've been under a terror attack for many years.
Right.
And it should be, the severity levels should be raised. Why? Because then that will increase the level of the security response.
Right.
Calling it banditry, unknown gunmen, it's just ridiculous.
I mean, I do have to let you go because we're out of time. So I want to ask about, how you expect the government to address this. You are right there in the field, and you represent 77 groups that are where this issue affects them at their very core. So how do you expect the government to address the root causes, and what would be the solutions that you prefer to at least address this as quickly as possible? Because 100 lives in 1 week, that is...
Well, time will not permit me, because we'd issued out our communique, we'd said some things, we had about 10 demands. But one of the key ones was that if they were overwhelmed in just responding, because our army is overstretched. The army is meant to be protecting on external threats, but they're working so much on internal threats. One of the things was to register and properly train even local groups and make sure that they're armed properly. Mm-hmm. Because one of the things we have seen happening, and this is where there's a lot of distrust of even the security forces and the Nigerian government, is that the Nigerian government allows headsmen to go around with weapons, AK-47s. They do not apprehend them. And I'm saying this because on national television many years ago, a Minister of Agriculture sat down with me on an interview and actually told me that they were allowing them to go around AK-47s. Because when they move in farms, people attack them and their cattle. So we're like, okay, so what about the farmers who they attack? So our farmers, what happens is, even when they arm themselves of self-defense, the military, the soldiers, they come, they will arrest them if they have machetes, and say they're carrying weapons. Why are you not arresting the headsmen moving around?
So the proliferation of small arms.
So there's proliferation of small arms, and also two, there is no clear justice. Even when some of the terrorists have been arrested and handed over to the police, they will tell you, they will release them and say an order came from above. So we need the government to investigate in these instances. Which order? Who is giving this order? Whoever it is should also be apprehended for being an accessory to genocide.
All right.
Terror. Let me stop there.
Yeah, I must say thank you so much for taking out the time to join us. And our heart goes out to the families of the 100 people who lost their lives in Gwer West and Apa and all the other communities. I must say thank you. Ier Jonathan-Ichaver, she's the co-convener of the influential Middle Belt Concern, which is comprising of some 77 groups in the North Central.